Imagine a Saturday night in Victorian Folkestone. A brass band marches down the street singing hymns. A crowd gathers, and then another group appears. They carry skull and crossbone banners, blacked up faces for disguise. They beat drums and they begin singing alternative words to the Salvation Army hymns, rude words. The crowd laughs, people cheer. For many spectators, this is entertainment, not unlike rival football teams exchanging banter and chants. But sometimes the jokes ended. Sometimes fists flew. And sometimes people died. This is an account of the Salvation Army, the Skeleton Army, and young drummer boy Charlie Joy. We're going to look for Charlie Joy's headstone now in section 9. I've got my plan here. Late Victorian Britain was changing rapidly. Industrial towns were crowded. Many working people spent their free time in pubs, music halls and street entertainment. Into this world came the Salvation Army. Founded by William Booth, the movement brought religion out of the churches and onto the streets.
This Wesleyan Methodist chapel, at the age of 15, he was converted to that life which, in the service of God, was to lead to the founding of the Salvation Army. It was in this room, beneath the chapel, that William Booth knelt at a table and prayed. He afterwards said, "I wanted to be right with God. I wanted to be right in myself. I wanted a life spent in putting other people right."
The Salvation Army marched with drums and brass bands. They sang loudly. They preached against alcohol. Followers were urged to not only give up the demon drink, but also lowbrow theatre, gambling, and lascivious pastimes. And they directly challenged the pub culture that formed the social heart of many communities. Although assertively working class, they were not in any sense revolutionary. On the other hand, the Salvation Army was revolutionary in a social, if not political sense. And that revolutionary spark was a worry for the better off, who had a financial interest in maintaining the status quo. The last thing they wanted was a band of sober, upright workers demanding proper pay and adequate conditions. But the landowners and factory owners did not have to lift a finger in opposition to the Salvationists. The lower class did their dirty work for them. Kent was one of the areas where tensions between the Salvationists and the Skeleton Army was particularly pronounced. Public marches through streets and seaside towns occasionally led to disorder, reflecting wider Victorian conflicts over religion, temperance, class identity and public morality. The clashes became a notable feature of local life during the 1880s before gradually fading from view. To supporters of the Salvationists, they were saving souls. To critics, they were noisy fanatics interfering with ordinary life. Opposition soon organised itself. In towns across southern England, groups calling themselves the Skeleton Army appeared. They adopted skull and crossbones imagery. Some carried banners depicting coffins, skeletons, and mocking slogans. They blacked up their faces as disguise. Many were young working-class men. Some were drinkers. Some were simply local lads looking for excitement. Not every member was a hardened troublemaker. Many joined for the spectacle, for the chance to mock Salvationists, for the fun of being part of a crowd. When the two groups met, the atmosphere could resemble a football match. Well-known Salvationist songs and hymns were answered with alternative words. Hymns were drowned out by rude and even obscene parody lyrics. I'll give you a moment to read these lyrics, but I suggest you don't sing them out loud. Insults flew both ways. There was no such thing as TV in these days. This was free entertainment, and the crowds loved it. The problem was that large crowds and strong emotions can quickly become dangerous. What began as banter would quickly turn nasty, and people would be pushing other people, and pushing become fighting, and fighting become riots. Across Britain, Salvation Army processions were pelted with stones, mud, rotten vegetables, and worse. Police would struggle to keep order. Some local authorities blamed the Salvationists for provoking disturbances by continuing to march. Others blamed the skeletons. Neither side thought they themselves were the aggressor. Each believed they were defending something important. The Salvationists believed they were fighting for morality. The skeletons believed they were defending their streets, traditions, and freedoms. Among the young Salvationists marching through Folkestone was Charles Herbert Charlie Joy. Charlie was little more than a boy, described as a rollicking Salvation Army boy, eyes full of fun, a mop of dark brown curls that every girl envied, and a voice like a cathedral choir boy. He had a smile for every old woman, a hand for anybody's burden, and a joking repartee for every curse. He had, too, a fist and a muscle which could put the fear of the Lord into any bully who thought that his smile meant he was a sissy. And Charlie played an important role. He played the side drum, and the drum was the heartbeat of the Salvation Army procession. Its rhythm kept marchers together and announced their arrival long before they could be seen. Charlie was known locally as a Salvation Army drummer boy. Like many young Salvationists, he found himself at the centre of an increasingly hostile environment. Accounts from the period describe confrontations between Salvationists and opponents that could quickly turn violent. In May 1890, Charlie died after receiving injuries during one such conflict. There was a story that he was thrown into the harbour during one of the scuffles, but he died at home in his bed, complaining of his head, possibly the result of a blow to the back of his head during another fight. He was only 16.5 years old. His death shocked many people. What had often been viewed as rough street entertainment suddenly revealed a darker side. The arguments, chants, and rivalries had real consequences, and today Charlie lies buried in Folkestone Old Cemetery. His grave reminds us that behind every headline was a real person. It's tempting to view the story as heroes versus villains. Reality was more complicated. Many Salvationists were sincere people trying to improve lives damaged by poverty and alcohol. Many skeletons were ordinary working people who resented being judged or told how to live. Some simply enjoyed the excitement. Others genuinely disliked the Salvation Army's methods. The conflict reflected deeper tensions in Victorian society: religion versus recreation, respectability versus independence, reform versus tradition. The Skeleton Army eventually faded away. The Salvation Army endured, become less confrontational, and become one of the most recognised Christian organisations in the world. Yet, for a few turbulent years, British streets echoed with rival songs, competing drums and confrontations that attracted huge crowds. And nowhere is that better remembered than in the story of Folkestone's young drummer boy. Thank you for listening to this account of Charlie the drummer boy. If you found the account interesting, please do like and subscribe to hear more stories of real people like this. Thank you.